family, entrepreneurship, personal development, tech, and marketing using real, raw, and 100% no bullshit proven tactics. My name is Ivan Temelkov, and I'm your host. I hope you weren't expecting anybody else. And today I'm joined on the podcast by the lovely Sandy Sanders. Good morning, good afternoon. How are you?
Hey, Ivan, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Sandy, before we jump into a conversation about where you've been, what you've seen, what you've done, talking about, your experiences and your story, I want to introduce you to our listeners and viewers and tell them a little bit about your background. So, as an entrepreneur and influential trailblazer of change, Sandy has served several Fortune 100 companies, including IBM, American Express, MetLife, and AT&T. Sandy has presented with an Outstanding Career Achievement STEM Award by Women of Color magazine. She possesses more than 25 years of broad-based leadership expertise in business development, sales, marketing, operations, and project management, and now helps professional women, experts, and digital entrepreneurs level up in their careers and businesses to secure the BAG. That's bodacious ass goal. Man, I love that. That's what's up. BAG, bodacious ass goal. So
You gotta get the bag. You gotta get the bag.
exactly. I love it. You got to get the bag. So Sandy, phenomenal, intro and, so much experience. I mean, you've done a lot working with a lot of Fortune companies, but let's take this way back. Let's go way back. Tell us a little bit about, your background, your story, growing up, where you've been, what you've seen, and how did you get to working with these Fortune 100 companies?
Oh my. It's a little bit different, I guess. I did not, growing up, think I was going to be a corporate America young lady. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly speaking, I really didn't think that I would be in sales. When I grew up, I thought I was going to be an attorney. That was my forte. I can tell you, I can, and I think I had this gift very young, and I don't say I interrogate, but I have a way with questioning to figure out exactly what I need to figure out from someone. But that ended up transitioning into it being a great salesperson, especially a consultative salesperson, because I can dig and uncover opportunities and needs that people didn't know that they had. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I thought I'd go into law school and become an attorney. I grew up in Chicago, suburban Chicago, the youngest of three. I had two older brothers, so that made me a tomboy. I probably have stitches in so many different parts of my body, like nobody would ever imagine, because I was always, and they would dare me to do there, but it is what it is. But in any case,
Sure.
thought I'd go to law school, and but I figured I would major in business so that I can probably pursue corporate law. I wanted to litigate. And it turned out that I did my first internship, not first internship. I got to work for 3M as my first internship, but my first internship with IBM, which was the summer before my junior year in college, was
Mm-hmm.
in their marketing department. So I got to work with and help and support as a marketing support rep their salespeople. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, this sales life is the shit. Like, I mean, really,
Yeah.
I'm like, they can be out of the office. They make a lot of money, they
Yeah.
get to go around. I'm like, I think I could do this sales thing. So I changed my major to marketing, graduated from Ohio State, got my MBA from Florida State in marketing as well, with the sales focus. But been working in sales leadership and business development ever since, and found that I was really good at it, and that really became my forte. So I had the chance of working with IBM, American Express. I
Mm-hmm.
went to MetLife. I had a stint where I had my own insurance brokerage in between the time, but when I went back to MetLife, was when my kids got older, and I decided I'm going to go back and climb the corporate ladder, and then went to AT&T after that. So that was a little bit about kind of how I got to where I did. AT&T was post recession for me.
Uh-huh.
So there was a lot of learnings that ended up getting me not only from the time I got to AT&T, but how my career really catapulted post the recession. So, but
Yeah.
that's how I got there.
Yeah.
Live in Florida right now, love it. I have a 28-year-old daughter who lives in Atlanta and a 25-year-old son who lives in California.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me ask you this. So while you were getting into sales and marketing and you were experiencing all of this, was there something that, was kind of pulling you in that you can think of that, I mean, besides obviously, sales is kind of you pave your own path and then, creating unlimited income potential, obviously, but besides that, was there something that you can think back that really just kind of reeled you in, kept you, motivated and interested to get into that field?
To get into sales?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just think it was the freedom, the flexibility, and the
Hmm.
the income.
Yeah.
And I was good at it. It was
Sure.
easy to me. Like, I could say I could sell water to, ice to an Eskimo, right? But
Sure.
it just came natural. And I really enjoyed solving problems and helping people discover the solutions to problems that they may not even know that they had.
Sure. Sure. I had to ask that question because for a couple of different reasons. So one of the things that we talk about on the podcast is, a why and a purpose, and
Hmm.
that's one part of it. And so I didn't know if there was like a why or purpose that was kind of driving you. And the other part is you'd be surprised that, especially in the entrepreneurial world, I'm sure you can relate to this, how many people are not natural to a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
Like it just doesn't come natural to them. It's not something
Yeah.
that like, you're passionate about, or you wake up every morning and say, okay, you've got that sense of gratitude and humbleness. And like for me, why and purpose is my kids and my family. And of course, I'm really good at what I do, but I love what I do. Not only that I'm really good at it. So, and I think that really plays a huge part into
Mhm.
how you invest your time and what you do with your time in your life,
Yeah.
because we spend probably, I think I was reading this recently, what, a third or maybe a quarter of our life or more working, basically.
Mhm. Mhm.
You're spending your time making a living, right? Because it's not like you just wake up every day and it's like, oh, it's a beautiful day, I'm not going to do anything today, right?
Right.
Everybody's got to make a living somehow, right? And so that was why I was asking, if there was something, but it sounds like it came natural to you. You really enjoyed it. You found a way that you could contribute. You found a way, to solve problems, which I agree with you with sales and marketing. A huge part of it is, solving problems and being very
Mhm.
creative. And
Yeah.
that's hard for a lot of people, even though a lot of people say that they can do it. Yeah, I'm a solution person, right? But like push comes to shove, and then like they can't put two and two together. And it's like, wait, you said you're good at this, right? Like, but it
Right.
doesn't come natural to you. So let me ask you this. So obviously, you've worked with a lot of prominent brands like IBM and American Express and MetLife, and of course, post recession, AT&T. I'm curious in your own thoughts. Obviously, these are Fortune 100, brands. I'm
Mhm.
curious, initially when you engage with these brands, what was can you recall back like your initial impression? Was there something that you resonated? You were like, oh my God, maybe you didn't expect that? Or can you think of something that kind of stood out to you when you work with these brands?
Well, I'll tell you, corporate America is very, very different than the entrepreneurial world, right? So,
Hmm.
I spent 25 years in corporate America. So obviously I was an employee and executive with several of those companies until I left in 2019. That's when I left AT&T after 8.5 years there. Several roles, several movement, really climbed the ladder quickly. When I left, I was responsible for national business marketing for all 5,500 of their retail stores. And but I tell you, the last probably 3 years, and I'll say AT&T was good to me. Like I
Yeah.
will never say, they were good to me. But I tell you, those last couple years, it was the time you talk about your why,
Yeah.
right? It was the time where I was making a lot of money. I, can't complain about that, but I
Yeah.
was not fulfilled, right? I wasn't living a life of purpose and passion at that point in time. I was also going through the latter stages of my mother's 11-year journey with Alzheimer's.
Mm.
And that journey ended in October of 2019. And I can remember, and I tell this story often at this point in time, because it really shaped for me what I did at that point in time in
Yeah.
2019. So there's two pivotal moments in my life. Number one was the recession of 2008. Number two was pre-pandemic, pre-recession, right? In 2019 when I lost my mom. It's just really interesting how those two times in my life parallel. But and I'll talk about the latter first, being when I lost my mom, I was working, when I tell you, overworked, stressed,
Yeah.
burnout, overwhelmed, to the tune that people don't really understand the stress impacts you physically, right? So I'm at the
Right.
chiropractor every week, back knotted up and everything, and just hated my job. I hated what I did, even though I was impactful.
Yeah.
Okay. I did a great job, right?
Right.
But I didn't wake up every morning, excited about what I needed to do. It was a chore and a drag. And I'm traveling. I was in Atlanta at the time. My mom is living in Chicago. I'm living in Dallas. And I remember that Monday, I was just struggling with just drama related to work. And I'm in tears that night and thinking, this is just ridiculous. I'm thinking about my mom. And I said, I'm going to take FMLA. I'm just going to stop working, go to Chicago and spend these last months with my mother, and whatever happens, then I'll pick back up afterwards. I'll do whatever it takes. I know I won't have income, but whatever. And then the next morning, I'm in a meeting and I get a call from her nurse saying, I know you're going to be here Friday, because my plan was to leave from there to go home to Dallas Wednesday and then fly to Chicago on Friday. She said, but I don't think she's going to make it through Friday. So, I'm scrambling, leave, go get my stuff, drop off the rental car, get to the airport, literally get on the plane. It was the last flight out, a few minutes before they closed the door, get there. And then she passed about 1:00 in the morning. And I thought at that moment, like, I made this decision that I was going to take FMLA. Like, I can't technically take FMLA anymore, but I decided I'm still going to leave.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's best for me. This is a decision I made, and I'm going to actually start a new chapter in my life. But what I realized, the reason why I was so stressed and hated what I did was because I wasn't in my zone back to what I was passionate about.
Right.
Right. And that is making an impact. I love sales. I love driving sales. But more important, what I really loved about my sales leadership role, I had 450 salespeople on my team at one point in time. And I was the professional development director of a 14,000 member employee resource group. I loved coaching.
Yeah.
I loved helping people achieve their goals. And I said, you know what? I want to do more of that. And I'm going to
Yeah.
take some time to figure it out. And the rest kind of became history.
Yeah.
Mhm.
As you were talking about, that pivotal point where you went from AT&T to basically realizing that you weren't fulfilled. There's something there that I don't think a lot of people realize now. I think even, I guess we could call it post-pandemic, is this that
Mhm.
I think for a very long time, we as human beings, and even nowadays, are conditioned to think in a certain way, to believe in a certain way, to believe everything we see.
Mhm.
I mean, TV, news, you name it, we're conditioned, right?
Right.
And I actually had a very interesting discussion recently with someone who we talked about kind of the traditional path of what that
Mhm.
traditional path is. Like you said, traditional path is, you
Right.
got a job, corporate America, you were
Right.
making a pile of cash, but you weren't satisfied.
Mm-mm.
you weren't fulfilled. And it's so ironic because I think we're seeing now, especially post COVID, when I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, tremendous
Oh,
amount of
yes.
opportunity from an economical standpoint. More and more
Hmm.
people are slowly realizing that, hey, I can actually harness my potential. I
Right.
can actually go after my goals and dreams. I can go after, like you said, you had enjoyed coaching. You were part
Yeah.
of this ginormous group, but you were
Right.
doing it from a corporate standpoint, which is really
Correct.
different because the way
Correct.
you attack those people is, let's just face it, it's like, corporate sales is that you got to meet the quota, right? You
Right.
don't meet the quota, you suck, you know?
Right.
So from an entrepreneurial standpoint, it's like, yes, you have a quota, but it's not like the end all be all, right? Because there's a lot
Exactly.
more to that. So it's
Right.
interesting that you were talking about this. So I think that's where, I want to segue into, I think you decided to, to make the magic leap, which I
Hmm.
understand is a trademark, out of corporate America and built a successful multi six figure business helping female experts and entrepreneurs level up from 0 to 6 figures or 6 to 7 figures by helping them start, sell, or scale their business with their unique offers. So you took the experience you got out of corporate America and you just said, you know what? Like, this is much bigger than me. This is much bigger than corporate America. This is
Yeah.
about giving people back, which I think that is really where you hone in on that purpose. You
Exactly.
realize that, okay, I can take my seasonality, my experience that I've acquired through corporate America and applied by helping other fampreneurs, just entrepreneurs, people who have goals and dreams, but they just don't know how to go from 0 to 6 and beyond, in
Mhm.
building their businesses. So let's talk a little bit about that magic leap and, tell us a little bit about, how does it work? How does it, help out of fampreneurs, entrepreneurs, in what ways do you help them basically say, okay, I hate my job, you know, and ironically, I know if I had someone who actually reached out to me on Facebook and it was like mind boggling, it was like, well, my job, I make 150K plus, per year, but I'm not fulfilled. So let's talk about that. How do you help people in that capacity?
It's interesting because when I left corporate, that's not what I thought I was going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up having, I've had a couple pivots along the way, but I also believe in the law of attraction. And when you take steps to, fulfill your destiny, then the universe is going to take steps to meet you, right? And you're going
Sure.
to end up where you're supposed to be. So, but I started out consulting and didn't do that on purpose either. Someone asked me, I said no a few times. They asked me to help them. And then I was like, okay, I'll do this. Maybe I'll consult with you. And then it just grew, right? But then I went back to, but I want to do more coaching. So I began to do coaching for career coaching for
Mm-hmm.
pretty much middle managers who are trying to make that leap up to that next level. The hardest level is to get to that director and executive level, but
Yeah.
I did it. Right. And
Sure.
so I knew how to do it. And that was the 3 P's to success: purpose, plan, and preparation, which I wrote about and I discovered after what I went through in the 2008 recession. But I wrote about it in a book that I co-authored that was called The Purpose Driven Woman. And so the the thing that really was important for me in terms of making that magic leap is what attracted people to me
Mm-hmm.
and asking how can they do the same thing I did, right? And that's when I began to pivot from more career coaching to helping coach entrepreneurs to make that leap themselves. And then again, I began working with more women. So I continue to narrow and fine tune my niche, which is kind of where I am right now in terms of helping women entrepreneurs secure that bag, the bag, BAG is that bodacious
Right.
ass goal, whatever it is, right, for them. But there's a couple things that's a part of that. Number one, you talked about, and that's your purpose. because so many people say they want to do something and they want to make that leap. They want to have their own business, but they struggle with what is it that they should do. And I say, you have to look inside. You got to figure out what your purpose is. Well, how do I discover my purpose? You got to figure out what you're good at naturally, like what comes
Right.
natural to you, what you enjoy, and not just, what you enjoy from a passion perspective, but you've got to look at why you enjoy that.
Yeah.
What makes it, what makes you so passionate about it, right? And then you've also got to look at the kind of problems that you can solve, right?
Sure.
And what people need, maybe what you are good at from an expert perspective, what type of transformation you've made, what you've accomplished. And when you combine those three and now decide what problem you can solve, but more importantly, what's a problem that somebody will pay for. So that's
Right.
the profitability perspective. When your passions intersect with profitability, then that's when you discover your purpose, because you can be passionate
Right.
about something and it's just a hobby, right?
Yeah.
But it's got to be a problem that you can solve that somebody can pay you for. And so when you discover that purpose, that's what'll help take you down the path of making that leap. So it's twofold. Number one, you've got to be prepared with a purpose and a plan, and take the right preparation. On the preparation side, you also have to, I say, have at least a 6-month cushion. It
Yeah.
may not be your income, but it definitely should be at least your 6 months of expenses, right? And then you're
Right.
going to have to be prepared to attack your purpose and your plan with pit bull tenacity. You need to go and show up every day and work just like you're working for corporate America.
Right.
And so all that kind of starts in my mind with the mindset. So I have a RISE formula for my clients that I work through to help them get from point A to point B, right? And that is rising above the competition, rising above whatever circumstances, rising out of where you are to where you want to go. And the R in RISE is for reset. That's resetting your mind. That's all the preparation in your mind that needs to actually take place. The I is identify. You've got to identify your niche, identify the opportunities, identify your
Mm-hmm.
passion, all of that. And there's a difference that people use identify or pick a target market. There's a difference between a target market and a niche. Okay. And most people fail when I'm working with clients and entrepreneurs that are, having a problem. They've reached a plateau, or they're not really getting more than 2 or 3 clients, and they're trying to take it to that next level. It's because they have a target market, but they don't have a niche. Okay. So they've
Yeah.
got to drill a lot further, drill a lot deeper. You've got to be that big fish in the small pond versus the small fish in the ocean. So I really help them fine tune and identify their niche and determine what problems they can actually solve for their clients. And then the S is creating that scalable offer, the solution, right? And being able to solve the problems for that niche. And then the E is execute with sales strategies, and make sure that you're able to turn those browsers into buyers. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the formula that I use to help my clients really secure that bag, whether they're starting their unique offer or they're
Yeah.
wanting to scale it and grow it.
There's all those things that you mentioned. I kind of go in lieu with one of my favorite quotes by Tony Robbins is that 90% of business is psychology and 10% is execution. And in other words, is you could be a phenomenal executioner, right? But if the psychology is not ticking and talking, then you're probably going to fail. Now, the other thing that you mentioned is the S is part of RISE. I think that's really important that people don't understand, especially new entrepreneurs, is that when you're creating solutions, not only have to be good at them, but you have to look for really big problems. But
Yes.
even then is, let's say you find a really big problem. The problem is contingent upon your target audience. as well. So you can have, a really big problem. Someone could have a really big problem, a potential client, but if they're not willing to pay to solve that problem, then they're not your ideal customer, your avatar, so to speak.
That's right.
And I know personally, this is something that I learned the hard way a long time ago, that if you don't find the right buyer persona, they might have a giant problem. But look at it this way: someone, might have a giant problem. If they're not an ideal customer, they might pay you $500 for it. Or your
Right.
ideal customer will pay 5,000 or more, because they understand how essential it is to fix that problem. And
Yes.
usually big problems actually have a correlation and attribution to other things in business.
Yes.
So
Yes.
they're kind of like an epicenter. Like if you look at it like a crystal ball, an epicenter,
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
really affect a lot of other things. So, and this is something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs just don't understand how
Yeah.
that plays a part. So I'm glad you mentioned solution, because
Yes.
sure, you can be good at creating solutions to problems, but then finding the right buyer that's willing to pay for that big problem.
Yes.
So okay, well,
And
that's really
speaking to
good.
those pain points, right? You got to
Mhm.
speak to those pain points so they understand, because it's the pain points that's going to determine the value or what it's worth to that individual.
Mm,
It's interesting that you say that, because obviously, working for, several, Fortune 100 companies, but also working on different extremes with frontline, say, retail employees all the way up through, executive leadership. But I always was able to connect with the frontline employees because I understood where they were coming from. And I was always able to be the right voice when I'm in, at the table with the senior leaders. But there will be many a times where, I'd be talking to frontline employees and they complain about, and this is mindset, right? They complain about, chairman of the boards and CEOs and how much they make. I said, you have to understand, you are directly compensated for the type of problems you can solve. Okay.
right.
You make what you make because you solve small problems or no problems at all. They make 7 figures per year because they solve 7 figure problems that other people can't solve.
Yeah.
So you hit the nail right on the head. And that's why I work with my clients. What types of problem can you solve? And that's going to determine your price point and your value proposition, and
Right.
ultimately help you continue to fine tune your niche or your ideal target customer.
You said something that's really important too. Is you talked about the pain points also, and you really got me thinking. That was an excellent point, actually. That brought a lot to mind, especially for someone like me that's been in the digital and the marketing field for 25 plus years. That I've
Mm-hmm.
understood that. I think, like you said, you're absolutely right. That understanding the pain points, I think determines how much it creates the emotion.
Yes.
It creates an emotion, because when it creates a valiant emotion, and then you can
Mm-hmm.
justify, okay, it's a really big problem, and then they talk about it and talk about it, and they extrapolate it, elaborate
Yeah.
upon it, and they give you
Mm-hmm.
experiences and this and this and this. They're like,
Yeah.
okay, this is a really big problem, because they're
Mm-hmm.
prying on it. That means that if they're
Yeah.
prying on it and they
Yeah.
establish that emotion, you're like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
I can come in here. Here's my
Yep.
price. I can solve this problem. I
Yes.
think they're going to be willing to pay for it. And I think it's tactical, right? It's a
Yeah.
tactical approach of how you
Mhm.
tackle that, to be able to determine of, are they a valiant customer, a valiant
Right.
potential customer, or
Mhm.
someone who's just fishing to see what they can get out of you from a value
Right.
standpoint. So that's
Exactly.
that's a really good point that you made on pain. I want to talk about, so you have a podcast that you started called Career Chic Confidential, as well, that helps women specifically, by providing proven, actionable, purpose-driven success and career tips to help them accelerate growth and propel into their future. But you also are starting a new community that I want to talk about, called Career Chic Collective, that helps women build that courage. So let's talk a little bit about Career Chic Collective and that community, and let's talk about how, because I was actually mentioning this yesterday, because I think I'm like on a streak of fanpreneurs, at least over the last several months on the show, and I've always been a huge fan, of more fun, just fanpreneurs in general, because I think entrepreneurship has been predominantly a male-driven sport
Yes,
for a
it
very
has.
long time.
Mhm.
And I saw the word courage actually that you mentioned in Career Chic Collective, which I think is something that a lot of fanpreneurs have struggled with.
Yes.
It wasn't a matter of I'm incapable, I'm not talented or skilled. It was a
Yes.
matter of am I courageous enough to
Yes.
penetrate a predominantly male-driven
Yes.
arena? Can I go out to the community and tell us a little bit about how other fanpreneurs can benefit from that?
Absolutely. So, couple things. It is, and I'm glad you mentioned it. It's career chick, you know. So it's interesting because I've had people reach out to me and say, "Well, you're pronouncing it wrong." Especially when I first started the podcast in December, like career, it's CHIC. It's pronounced chic. And I said, "Well, in French, maybe it is, but here it's chick." And chick it
Okay.
is the slang word for, kind of that sexy, classy woman, right? And and so I also said, well, did they tell the founder of Chick Jeans, which is spelled CHIC, back in the 80s that he was pronouncing his brand wrong? No, it's Chick. And so the career Chick brand, stands for that genuine, confident, magnetic woman, stunning in her mind, body, and soul, who is, very who's an expert in her career or her business, and who is just really committed to making an impact on those around her. That's that chick, right? And so the brand is about. And what I found is that not only in business, obviously with my corporate America experience and me
Mm-hmm.
being not only a minority in terms of being African American, but just being a woman in leadership is also, it's a struggle for most. We
Yeah.
have to fight. And the same applies as far as entrepreneurship is concerned. But we as females are our own worst enemies. Like we doubt ourselves. And I remember there was a Harvard study that was done and about self-promotion and women. And so it literally firsthand when I would work with, those who either worked on my team or that I mentored or coached while I was
Yeah.
in corporate America, women will always say, well, I got to do this first, or I got to get this degree, or I got to take this certification, or I should have this much more experience before I go for that job. And I'm like, dude, you're ready. Like you're ready right
Yep.
now,
Yep.
but I would coach the men and they're like, I got that. And they got half the experience, don't know. I'm like, what is this?
Yep.
Like, why do you not understand that? And so we feel like we've got to be 150% qualified and ready,
Yep.
whereas men, you guys are like, I can do that. And
Yep.
we can do a better job. I'm just saying, right?
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Speaking of that, is that's a very good point, because yes, I think men are generally, well, this is not necessarily true, but they are, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, tend to be more fearless, meaning that I got this, I'll take a stab at it, I got a 50% chance. Women, right, like you said, they feel like they need more preparation to be
Yep.
able to go in. It's kind of like a while back there was this analogy: is if you look at a pond and there's these paddle boats, right, and you've got men and women, right, and the challenge is how to get to the other side of the pond, right? Men are like, all right, I'm jumping in the boat, I'm gonna paddle my ass over there, right? Women are like, let's analyze this, what's the tactical approach to this, which is important, but you got to be proactive and take action. And I
I
feel
do.
like I know this for a fact, that the women are just as, if not more, fearless than men, right? But I think it's sort of that that hold kind of like that they feel like they're incapable, they're not bold enough or courageous enough, or they need more experience. And entrepreneurship is like
perfection. They feel like
yes,
they have to have it all together. It's
yep,
that perfectionism. I always say done is better than perfect, right?
right,
And an imperfect action beats delayed procrastination every single time. Every
hmm,
single time. Like you gotta just do it, in the
right,
words of Nike, right? Take that step, right? And that's the only way. And again, I believe in the law of attraction too. When you start taking those steps, the universe is going to support you and push you through to what you need to do. But yeah,
yep,
fear is huge, and that perfectionism is a problem as well. And that's what prevents them from having the courage to step out of their comfort zone. And then the
yeah,
fear of failure. It's not really the
yeah,
fear to start it and do it. It's the fear of failure that becomes a really huge problem, or even kind of isolation. If you think about it, like, what are people going to think about me? So that's the other reason why. So that's the reason, from an entrepreneur perspective, where I said I'm going to start the
yeah,
collective. And I'm in the process of launching it now. It will be a free community, so there is no cost to the ladies, but it is really important, in my opinion, especially for female entrepreneurs and what I call solopreneurs, right? To be able to have a resource of like-minded women who are either going through what they have gone through or are going through, right?
right,
Or who have already been there and can provide support and resources. And then the networking, right? And the connection, very
yeah,
conscientious connection. So, yeah, the Career Chick Collective, I say, is, where I would help provide that courage, that confidence, competencies, really conscientious connection, a place of comfort, right? And I said, let's not forget those coins. Like, how do we get the coins out of it? Right.
right,
So that's really important. So that is kind of the free community I'm working on. And then what goes beyond that is we have paid resource or paid membership called the Career Chick Click,
hmm,
but it is actually going to be what it take it to the next level as it relates to kind of a mastermind group with
hmm,
very, a much more limited group of ladies that are really focused on honing in and solving their biggest business problems. I am all about lifestyle and travel. And I tell you, I hit a point just a few months ago. I've really been on a sabbatical almost for the last 2 to 3 months.
hmm,
I had to have rotator cuff surgery, and I had a panic attack. And I tell you, I've never had a panic attack in my life. I would see people on TV. I'm like, it's not real. Just freaking breathe. Like,
yeah,
breathe. Like, what the fuck? Like, how you, like, I don't understand
yeah,
what's
yeah,
happening there. And and I'm working hard, and I got all this stuff going on, and I've got a lot going on with my primary consulting client, and in all this growth mode. And I realized that as soon as I found out that I tore my rotator cuff and I had to have surgery, and I'm on this call with, a one-on-one call with my client's employee, and I started like chest tight, back tight, couldn't breathe. I mean, I ended up in the emergency room, all kinds of madness. And I realized it was a panic attack. And I thought back to when I decided to leave corporate America. I was
yeah,
like, I made really good money, like in corporate America, but I was stressed, overwhelmed, overworked. And I realized that's kind of that drive is what's in me. And that's what I ended up doing to myself as an entrepreneur. But what was lacking was
yep,
I didn't have that collective. I didn't have, somebody that I can reach out to, and that's where kind of female entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, are in that place where they don't have that network of people who can help them and support them. So what coming out of it, which this is like literally this month, I'm just kind of coming off of that sabbatical, is where I decided I'm going to have retreats for these female
Hmm.
entrepreneurs. That's a part of the Career Chick Click. It's twofold. One is the mastermind, a mansion mastermind. So we'll do an overnight in a mansion, 2 days. The first one is actually going to be on September 22nd, beautiful mansion in Florida. September 22nd happens to be American Businesswoman's Day. So it is
Okay.
going to be awesome, and it'll provide them with that conscientious connection and ability to solve their biggest business problems, some intensive coaching, some relaxation and fun and in luxury. And I have a surprise guest who is an executive of Fortune 100 company that I'm not going to say her name, but she is the first woman and only woman of color who has ever sat at the table, at the executive table of a Fortune 100 company, and she is going to be dropping some phenomenal gems and sharing with us. So that is it's an attempt, not an attempt, but it's a much needed opportunity for female entrepreneurs to have that conscientious connection
Hmm.
along with growth and balance.
Yeah.
Because well-being is everything. You've got to take care of yourself if you're going to take care and grow a business. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's very powerful. I appreciate you sharing that. One of the things that I wanted to latch on that you talked about failure. I think there's a lot of, and I don't know if this is just on the fanpreneur side. I think it's
mhm.
probably on male entrepreneurs too. But I think there's a lot of misconceptions about failure, and there's a lack of education around failure, meaning that failure is essential in
Yeah,
entrepreneurship. You will fail before you succeed. In fact, you're going to fail more times before you succeed. And
right,
I think that aspect of thinking about failure, I think it tends to psych people so much because they
right.
look at failure and they say, okay, well, what if I fail and I don't succeed? And it's almost like like it holds them back from their potential. But when you look at it from a reality standpoint, I think this is where education comes in, right? Is
Hmm.
this that in life specifically, not just in entrepreneurship, you're gonna fail.
Yes,
It's no different than entrepreneurship. I
yes.
think it becomes sort of an anomaly that gets put up on the pedestal, and people look at it and say, failure. Okay, I'm going to fail, so I'm not going to start that business. I'm not going to
Hmm.
pursue that idea
Hmm.
because I'm afraid of failing. And
Right,
I think as an entrepreneur, you'll have to be resilient. You'll have to understand that when you wrap your mind around the fact that failure in business is no different than failure in life,
right.
you're onto something.
It's actually easier. Like
That's just it.
it's
Yeah,
better to fail in business than in life, right? If
sure.
you know that you fail in life. But here's the thing about failure. It's so cool that you're talking about this because what if a baby decided that I'm not going to get up and walk or
Hmm.
try to walk because I'm going to fall? They'll never walk,
Right.
right? Like you've got to start. Like you're going to fall, so you've got to look at it differently. You can't look at it, and I tell my clients all the time, you can't look at what if I fail.
Right.
you know what is the cost of failure? The cost of failure, I promise you, is less than the cost of success, right? So you should be asking yourself,
Yeah.
what if I succeed?
Yeah.
You're asking the wrong question. Talking about what if I fail? You've got to fail. You've got to be prepared to fail. You've got to put failure in your plan, right? And what you do is you learn from those mistakes and you learn fast and you
Yep.
pivot and then you do something different.
No, that's an excellent point, and I think we can talk so much about success too, as well. Maybe for a follow-up episode, because
Yeah.
I think I mentioned earlier on how much I think as humans, we are so conditioned into thinking about conditioned into believing what we see, believing what we
Mm-hmm.
hear, and not necessarily creating our own definitions of things. Thinking for yourself, basically, in essence. And I'm speaking to success because let's face it, traditional success has been conditioned for us to think that it's money, houses, cars, bank accounts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which, traditionally that is what the definition of success was, right? You made a lot of money, lived in a big house, drove one or more expensive cars, and there's 5, 6, 7 figures in the bank account. Life is good. But
Mm-hmm.
what we're seeing now is more and more people are going from, like, you made good money, you made good living, but you weren't fulfilled. So that wasn't success. Money
Right.
wasn't success.
Nope.
Success for you, so your definition of success is finding that fulfillment, which is helping people on a
Yes.
more personal level, which is how corporate and more personalized one-on-one entrepreneurial approach differentiates.
Yes.
We could definitely talk more about success, because I'm a huge fan of everything that you mentioned about mindset and personal development, understanding your why and your purpose and fulfillment, and finding what makes you happy, not what others
Right.
want you to do to make you happy, but what makes
Right.
you happy, right? But with that being said, before we wrap up the episode, throw out some links, some websites, emails, whatever you can think of, handles,
Awesome.
socials, where people can connect with you and have a conversation.
Absolutely. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at Sandy Inspirator. So that's my handle for all four of those for my, business brand, my personal brand. But
Mm-hmm.
for the Career Chick brand, which is all newer, so to speak, my podcast is Career Chick Confidential. So I am on all the listening platforms. I have been on a sabbatical. So season 1 ended at the beginning of April, and season 2 launches next week on the 15th. So every Tuesday morning it's released. But the change this season is it's also going to be on video now. So it was only audio.
Okay.
Season 1, season 2 will be video. You'll find it on YouTube, and then you'll find it also on my Instagram, which is Career Chick Confidential. So very, very excited about that. So email me, Sandy at sandysandersconsulting.com. You can call me 321-233-0941. You can reach me any kind of way,
Okay.
and would love to help. Like I said, I'm actually, because there's so many more people that ask me that may not be ready for coaching and intensives, but really want to get a blueprint. So I'm releasing a book, a guide called The Magic Leap Blueprint. And that is how to monetize your passion and attract your ideal clients, so that you can actually get more clients than you can handle. I turn away clients now, so it's great. So I'll share how to do that. That's going to be released later this month. And like I said, the Mansion Mastermind is going to be September 22nd. So if you're interested in applying to be one of the lucky 6 ladies, then definitely reach out to me as well, Sandy at sandysandersconsulting.com, or at Career Chick Confidential, or at Sandy Inspirator.
Awesome. Well, Sandy, thank you so much. I absolutely enjoyed our conversation, and you brought up so much value. Congratulations on everything and the takeoff of your business venture, and finally doing things for the right reasons, where you have found that fulfillment. And I'm excited to see what happens the rest of 2021 and beyond.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Ivan. Really, really enjoyed it, and really appreciate the